Hey everyone, welcome back. This is part 3 of the Legendary Troops tier list for Gems of War. I didn't think when I started this tier list that I was going to go into 3 parts, but here it is. We still have quite a few legendaries to go through, and I do want to try to make this video a little quicker than the last two, but at the same time I still want to give each legendary a little bit of time to look over what it does. So hopefully I won't have to go into part 4, but we'll see. So let's get into it. We're going to continue with the list here. Emperor Liang is the next one. And its ability is to destroy gems of a chosen color, give all allies of the matching color 21 life and 4 magic. So it does have a way to give itself mana, because it is destroying gems of a certain color. So if you wanted to, you could give yourself mana. Yeah, it's also great for getting mana to other allies in your team, and also will give them life and 4 magic of that matching color. Its traits. We have the first trait here, exchange 2 life for 2 magic on 4 or 5 gem matches. And we have immune to mana drain, silence, fairy fire, and mana burn. And then finally, the fourth one, we have enchant a random ally on 4 or 5 matches, which is really good. Enchant is great, and whenever you do that 4 or 5 match, it's going to enchant a random ally, which on top of it destroying gems of a chosen color, lots of mana generation for your team here, as well as giving them more survivability with the life and more power with magic. And I can't really say that any of the traits on this troop are bad. They all look pretty good. So I'm going to say this is a great support troop. Is it as good as Divinia? Probably not, because Divinia cleanses all allies. This does not have a cleanse. So I would say this is a little bit less than Divinia. But we did put Divinia up in S tier. So I'm going to have to say this is definitely a A-tier support troop, for sure. I think it's better than Celitasia, which is down here. So I'm putting it there at A. Yeah. Alright, moving on here to King Avlorn. King Avlorn is a legendary troop that does damage to all enemies, boosted by elf, elemental, and beast allies. Summon a Forest of Thorns troop. So that is actually a positive, because that'll allow you to stay on the battle longer if it's summoning troops. And damage to all enemies, though, is not the greatest damage type. That's a little bit of a negative for me. And let's look at its traits. First one is Trash. Gain 1 magic for each green ally. Immune to mana drain, silence, fairy fire, and entangle. That is great. And then we have all elves start with 50% mana. So that is actually great as well. So what I'm going to say is this has some damage potential, but it's more of a utility troop, where you're going to use it so that your other elves are going to start with 50% mana primarily, and you're going to use it for the summon Forest of Thorns troop. And the damage is just kind of extra, just in case. So this troop is probably... it's B or C. I want to say that it's a B troop, just because it has the 50% trait to all certain types of an enemy. So we're going to go ahead and put this in B. And I'm going to put it right up here next to the Queen Miraji troop, because that gives 50% to all elemental troops. So that's up there in B. Where it is in B, I don't know yet. I'm just going to put it right there for now. But I don't think that it is I don't think it's good enough to go into A. So that's good. Let's go back here. Now, the Widow Queen, I've only used this troop maybe not even a dozen times, honestly. So let's take a look at it here. Sacrifice an ally, deal 10 damage to all enemies boosted by the sacrificed troop's life. Summon a random Zolkari troop. So it does have a summoning. I'm not real keen on the sacrifice an ally thing. And then its damage to all enemies is kind of a negative. But as a positive, it will summon a random troop in place of the one that it sacrificed. So that is good. For its traits, the first one is trash, the second one is good, and the third one, web a random enemy on 4 or 5 matches. The web is actually a pretty powerful negative status effect, and so that is good. Yeah, that's okay. The first one, though, is kind of trash. The first trait there. And, you know, if we look here, the boost ratio is 3-to-1, so a third of all the life of a troop that was sacrificed is going to be added to the 10 damage. And, you know, so if I had a troop that had 90 life, 30 of that would be added to the 10, which would give me 40 damage to all enemies. It has some damage potential, and then it will replace it with a random Zolkari troop. And you could keep doing that over and over. And then you could possibly have web going on. But it just, I don't know if that's something you want to rely upon. And most troops that you're going to be playing with, especially early in the game, are not going to have high life. So I feel like this is the kind of troop that you would use later in the game when you're able to have your troops have more life so that this troop could do more damage. But then the problem you run into is that once you get later in the game, you're going to have other stronger troops that you would use besides this troop that are just quicker, and they're going to do more damage faster. So this troop has some potential, but I feel like it's not something that you're going to reach for all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this troop down into C tier. And moving on now to, we already did Yao. That is the end of legendary troops then for the elves. Let's go to Fae. So legendary troops, we already did the Elder Father. Unfortunately, we didn't have an image for him. But he's A tier. Glitterclaw we did, Gloomleaf we did, Orion. Okay, we got a couple here that we haven't done. Queen Mab. Queen Mab used to be really great in the day. Probably would have been classified as an S tier troop. But there's more and more troops now that are getting the immune to mana burn trait, and mana burn is dealing damage to a troop equal to the mana that they have collected, and then boosted by the magic that you have, which is 21 right here. So if I have 21 magic added to the added to the amount of mana that they've collected, that's how much damage that I would burn them for. And then it says if there are 13 or more blue gems, gain an extra turn. Its traits, immunity to frozen. Its middle trait, gain 1 to magic when an ally casts a spell. That's trash. Freeze a random enemy on 4 or 5 gem matches. That is great. And that's one of the things that you will sometimes include Queen Mab in your team for, is so that you can get freeze going on. Especially when you're fighting against goblins, because freeze will it'll stop them from getting so many extra turns. And that's great. But mana burn, I don't find it to be as useful as it used to be. So Queen Mab has gone down in value for me quite a bit over the last half a year even. And And I feel like there might be other troops that are better to freeze with. But it's still useful for that. And mana burn. And it's still a damage to all enemies. So I think Submerge actually does dodge this. Yeah, so Queen Mab. I am going to put Queen Mab in B tier. It's not A. I would say that it's B. Yeah. Yeah. Alright. So now we have Queen Titania. Now, this troop has seen its day of dangerous times. And usually you'll see teams with Yao combined with this troop simply because they have some good synergy with red gems. So again, this is a deal damage to all enemies type of troop, and it's boosted by red gems. Well, it's boosted by red enemies, rather, and allies. And then it's boosted... Well, then it gains an extra turn, actually, if there's 13 or more gems on the board. So, yeah, we have... and the boost ratio is 4, so it's going to add 4 damage to that for each red enemy and ally that is there on the board. And so... its traits, first one is trash. Allied Fae gain 2 life. Second one is okay, immunity to burning and fairy fire. The third one is where it really shines, and that's Fairy Fire, random enemy on matching 4 or 5 gem matches. So, Fairy Fire is going to be giving this troop more damage than it is showing here. But, again, it's damage to all enemies, and that can be dodged with Submerge, or Barrier can block that damage too. So, I would say this troop is something that belongs probably in B tier, because by itself, it's really not that great. When it's combined with a few other troops where you can get those 4 and 5 gem matches, and you can get the mana to this troop really quickly, then it can be more powerful. But as it stands, it doesn't even generate mana for itself. So, yeah, I'm going to say that this troop is... Queen Titania is going to be going into something like B tier. And let's take a look at, this is actually the newest legendary, I think, which is called the Mirror Queen. It's from the Mirrored Halls Delve faction in the Underworld. So this troop has an interesting mechanic to it. It will deal damage to an enemy boosted by reflected allies. Then there's a 50% chance to summon a copy of that enemy. So this is pretty interesting. So if you cast this on an enemy mythic troop, it has a 50% chance to summon a copy of that enemy in your team if you have an open space, which could be incredible in certain circumstances. Right. So looking at his traits, the first one is only for delves. The second one is trash. Allied Fae gain 2 life. That just doesn't even matter at all. The third trait here is where it shines. Give reflect to a random ally when matching 4 or more gems. So you're going to want to combine this troop with probably a mana generator that transforms a mana color to a different color, so that you can get this reflect going on your allies. And reflect on its own is pretty interesting, because reflect will reflect the damage that's done to it back to the enemy that did the damage to it. So if you have reflect on all of your troops, it will all the spells that they do are going to be reflected back. Well, reflect goes off after it gets hit once, but Yeah, this legendary troop is can be very effective, I think, in the near future. You build up some teams with this reflect mechanic going on, and it has the possibility, a 50% chance possibility to summon a copy of an enemy you target with this legendary troop. For that alone, I think it belongs probably, it probably belongs at the back A tier. Simply because the 30 damage here doesn't seem like much, but that's boosted by reflected enemies, so it could be more. But then it's with its trait, it's giving reflect to your allies, which means if you get, I know I'm repeating myself here, but if you get attacked, let's say by like a spell that's like 50 damage, that damage then gets reflected back to that enemy. And so there's a lot of hidden potential, is what I'm trying to say, for extra damage in this legendary troop. And for that alone, I think right now I'm going to go ahead and put it at the back A tier. The Mirrored Queen, I think it deserves back of A tier simply for the reflect and the copy. Those two combined puts it A tier. If it was just reflect and that's all it was, and it didn't have the possibility, the 50% chance to summon a troop for you, a really strong one potentially, then it would probably be B tier. But I'm going to go ahead and throw that up in A tier. And we already did the Wendigo and the Tinsentail, so let's move on to the next category. Is there any giants that we missed? There is one or two giants that we missed right here. Gog and Good. This troop, it says either deal 22 damage to the first enemy and spend all my gold to boost the damage, or deal 22 damage to all enemies and gain 50 gold. Now, you got the damage to all enemies, which is kind of a negative to me, and spending all your gold to boost the damage of the 22. Now, okay, so if you add this with Cedric, which is another legendary we'll get to, you could boost your gold amount to 200. That's the max. And it's a 1-1 boost ratio, so you could potentially do 222 damage to an enemy with this troop if you combine it with Cedric. If you don't, the max gold is what, like, if you have no gold boosters, it's pretty low. It's like 40 or something like that. So, and by itself, that's all the potential it would have. It does have for traits. The first one is trash. Second one is trash. Third one actually is has good synergy with it. Gain 20 gold on 4 or 5 gem matches, but again, by itself, it's just not going to do that much damage. And it's not. It has a 50% chance probably to do the other thing, which is deal damage to all enemies, which isn't boosted by gold. If both of these were boosted by the amount of gold you have, where it could do 200 plus damage to one enemy or 200 plus damage to all enemies, this troop would, I would see that it could be more powerful, and I would find a use for it, possibly. But as it stands, there are, like the Skeleton Key weapon is way better than concluding a troop like this in your team. So this troop is pretty much useless right now in the game. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it in F, just because it's useless. And for a legendary troop, you would think that it would be, it would have something better going for it. So yeah, that's going down in F. It's still better than Hydra, because everything's better than Hydra. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and throw that down in there. And, yeah, alright, let's go back to the list. One more of the giant legendaries. This is a faction legendary from the Dark Pits called Sledge Paw. A little bit lower mana cost than the average, and it doesn't do any damage by itself except for skull damage when you attack with skulls if it's at the top. And I actually do like this troop. It works really well in like a wild folk team because it's wild folk. You can combine this with 3 other wild folk teams and with King Salamis, I think his name is. You can get 50% starting mana on this guy and all of your wild folk troops. And this guy will start generating mana for your troops really quickly. And not only does it generate mana, it destroys a 5x5 block, which is, I don't know what that is, like a third of the board. It's a quarter or a third of the board. And destroying them is as if you matched them, so that's good. Then it curses, it bleeds, and it stuns the first enemy, which is great. Traits, the first one doesn't matter except in Delves. The second one, it does have a reduction to skull damage by 25%. And then the last trait here recovers 6 life at the start of each turn. So it does have a good survivability there between the skull damage reduction and recovering life. And it's a great mana generator. Relatively low mana cost. Curses, bleeds, and stuns the first enemy. I think it's a good complement for just about any team, really, that doesn't block its mana. So yeah, I'm gonna put that pretty high, I think, on my list here. And I think I'm gonna go with the fact that it stuns the first enemy is going to give you a lot of power against tanky troops like Stonehammer, Gorgotha, and any other skull damage reduction troop. It generates mana, plus it's recovering life with that trait. I want to put it at the end A tier, but I mean, it does have a 13 mana cost. If it had like an 18 mana cost, I'd probably drop it down to B. And also the fact that it regenerates that 6 life every turn, at the start of every turn, and not just like on 4 or 5 matches. I think I'm going to go with A here. And I know that might shock a lot of people, but I've been using this guy recently in a few different teams, and I really like the fact that he stuns the first enemy as well as generating mana for your team. So stun is really a great effect. So yeah, I'm going to put him A. We're going A with him. And we're slowly getting through our troops here. Let's keep going. Getting closer to the end. And let's go down to... I don't think I missed any goblins, did I? Because, no, yeah, I think I still got the Queen grapple pot. Let's do her, okay? Because, yeah, I'm pretty sure I got the Goblin King and Gobtruffle. Yeah, so Queen Grapple Pot does 20 damage to all enemies boosted by ally and enemy goblins. Gain an extra turn. Traits, allied goblins gain 2 armor. Gain 1 life for each green ally. Both of those are trash. All allied goblins gain 5 life on 4 or 5 gem matches. That's okay. And, yeah, these 2 traits are trash. Yeah, I don't really know what else that could be there to synergize with this troop, but yeah. Damage to all enemies, it's not really that great, but gaining the extra turn is still really good. Its damage is boosted by enemy ally and enemy goblins. It does have gain life on 4 or 5 matches, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and place Queen Grapple Pot down in C. I mean, it does the damage to all enemies, but other than that, it doesn't really have much going for it. It's a pretty stale troop. It does have the extra turn, but, you know, it doesn't have much else going for that. At least the King Goblin can summon troops down here, but he doesn't really have anything else going for him other than that. But maybe I should rethink this guy, King Goblin here. Nah. Queen Grapple Pot. Maybe you belong down in D. Because by yourself, you're just not that great. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. And let's go back and take a look at our list. So that was the last legendary for goblins. Humans. Okay, there is a couple of legendaries here that I still have to do for humans. Quite a few, actually. So let's get right into it. And we have Grizzly the Undefeated. So, Grizzly the Undefeated deals 33 damage to an enemy, curse them, and inflict 2 to 4 stacks of bleed. Okay, so it has the potential to do true damage to a troop over time, and it curses them, which a curse will dispel any positive stat effects they have, and then all the immunities that it has are ignored. So it could be very useful as like a cursed troop. The damage is not that good on it. The traits deal double skull damage against humans, reduce damage by skulls by 25%, gain 8 mana when an enemy dies. Interesting. So they got kind of a skull thing going on here. It does do double damage against humans. I probably would never put this troop at the top unless there were humans in the team. And I can't really see using this troop for anything other than its curse and its bleed function. So, this guy, Grizzly the Undefeated. Yeah. You know, I'm going to go C tier because bleed and curse is... Well, curse is pretty powerful, and then you got the bleed, and that's okay. So C tier for that. If it had stun, it'd be a little bit better, but it doesn't. And it doesn't do much damage there, like I said. So, yeah. Alright, King of Thieves, another legendary here from the Underworld. And it's got a little bit higher mana cost. It deals 30 damage to an enemy, gain 3 to all skills boosted by my gold. And that's every single time you cast it. Its traits, the first one only affects elves. Second one, gain 4 bonus gold when matching 4 or more gems. The third one, gain 10 gold when I take damage. That's really kind of useless because, well, maybe not so useless, but once you max out your gold, these traits are useless. So those only matter as long as you're trying to get gold, and the best way to get gold is better than relying upon this. So the best way to get gold is to put greed in your team, and once you cast greed like twice, you already have max gold. But at 200 gold, every time you cast this, you're going to be increasing all of your stats by a fifth of that gold. So you're looking at, 200 divided by 5. Yeah, you're looking at like an increase of like 35 to 40 to all your skills every single time you cast at that point. Which I've already tried this troop out in the gold team with Egg Thief and Greed and Cedric. And it has a lot of damage potential, but only after you cast it like a dozen times. So Where should we rate this guy? Where should we rate him? I think he's gonna be C tier because he's got the potential to be really powerful, but unless you have him in a team that centers around the gold, he's just not something that you are going to use that often. So I'm going to go C tier with that guy. Now we got Magnus. Deals 22 damage to all enemies, boosted by diseased and poisoned enemies, then disease and poison all enemies. So this troop's got a lot going on with disease and poison. Disease is great because it halves the mana that a troop gains. Damage to all enemies is kind of a negative. Its traits, the first one is trash. Like, why would you... There's nothing in this troop that's damage is boosted by gold at all. Why would you have a trait that has gold in it? That's weird. The second one is good because it's immune to all status effects, devour and mana, burn. The third one, inflict a random status effect on 4 or 5 gem matches. That's actually really good because it can inflict silence and entangle and all kinds of stuff like that. So, yeah, Magnus, where shall I place you? I'm going to say Magnus belongs probably in B tier. Not because of its damage, but because of all the disease and poison that it does. And then on the 4 or 5 matches, a random status effect. That's really, really powerful sometimes. And can mean the difference between you losing or winning. So he's going to go B tier for me. And then we have Medea. So here's Medea. And she does 21 damage to all enemies, enchant all allied demons, and barrier all mystics. So this is kind of an odd legendary troop in the sense that you need to play it with demon troops if you want to enchant them. But I feel like there's other better ways to enchant demon troops than to use this troop. And barrier is specific to all mystics. So unless you have a mystic in the team, you get no barrier. And then damage to all enemies is sort of a negative as far as damage type. The first trait is trash. Allied mystics gain 2 life. The second one, a chance to summon an ancient horror on death. That's decent. All mystics gain 1 magic on 4 or 5 gem matches. That's not the greatest thing. So, yeah, Medea, you are going to go into... Medea. Yeah, it does have some damage, but it's to all enemy types. I think I'm going to put it D tier. I never use Medea because it's kind of clunky with the barrier and enchant thing with certain teams. And it's got a little bit higher mana cost than most other legendaries. So, yeah, let's just go D tier with her. And then we have Queen Isabella, which is a pretty good troop for a legendary. I use it more often than Medea, that's for sure. Deal damage to the first enemy equal to an ally's attack. Then give 18 attack and armor to them. Give 3 to 8 mana to all allies other than myself. So it's giving lots of mana to the rest of your team. It can give attack and armor to a troop that you choose. And so this troop works really great with Mang because Mang is going to get that really high damage. And then you can use this troop to do that attack without even connecting a skull. So that's great. First trait on this is trash. Allied Knights gain 2 life. That's just... no. Second one, reduce damage from skulls by 25%. Hey, that's good. All humans gain 2 armor at the start of each turn. That's fine. Yeah, so this troop, I think I'm going to place this one in A tier. Just because it has a lot of things going for it. It generates a lot of mana for for your other allies in your team. And it has the potential to do a lot of damage with a weapon like Mang. So I'm going to put that up there in A. And then we have Tesla. So Tesla is a legendary troop that has no damage boosted by magic. So it's always going to deal an 8 true scatter damage, but it's boosted by all ally and enemy armor. So if you want to do a lot of damage to enemy troops, you need to have a way to boost your armor on your team. So the first trait on it is trash. All allied mechs gain 2 life. Trash. Gain 2 armor on 4 or 5 matches. That's okay, but it's just I would rather see something like what was that other troop that had like 6 life at the start of every turn that it recovered? It'd be better if Tesla had something like that except for armor. In his final one, allied mechs gain 5 attack and armor. So some of the traits are lacking on this one, but that's fine because in its ability, without even unlocking its traits, it has all the damage potential that you'll ever need with it. So that alone is going to put it on a higher part of the list for me. And if you have ways of gaining armor, which we have weapons that can do that, like the Shield of Verskaya, we have troops that can gain armor or double armor on your allies. So there's ways that this can really shine. And I think it has the potential to be an S tier troop. So for me, Tesla's going up there because Tesla is a troop that I will use in like delves or certain events where the enemies have a lot of armor and life and attack, and Tesla will use that against them, and it really, really shines in those really tough battles like that. So that's S tier. So yay. Yeah, so moving on here to, that's it for human legendaries. So let's go on to knights. And we have a couple of legendaries here in the knights. We have King Mikhail, which explodes a row, deals 22 damage to all enemies, deal 9 more damage if I am enraged. So the exploding a row is good because it's generating mana for itself, enraging itself. Well, actually, it doesn't enrage itself. It's a deal 9 damage more if I am enraged. But the deal damage to all enemies is kind of a negative for me. Gain 3 to all skills if in the first position. That's trash. Reduce damage from skulls by 25%. That's fine. Gain enraged when matching brown gems. Okay, that's good. So the trait it synergizes with this, which will allow you to do more damage to all enemies. It can generate some mana for itself through the Exploder row, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like this troop needs something else. The damage to all enemies, I'd rather see it even do random damage instead of damage to all enemies, but it's what it is. And yeah, for me, I am going to where is there he is. Yeah, I'm going to put him because he does damage to all enemies, but he also has the potential to do more damage with skulls because it can be enraged. So I'm going to actually go B tier with King Mikhail. Yeah. Mikhail. All Alright. Hang on a second, guys. I'm going to take a quick break here, and I'll be right back in like 2 minutes. I got to take care of something real quick. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, you just have to go forward in the YouTube video. Yeah, skip that part. Alright, let's get right back into it. Okay, I just finished King Mikhail. Let's go to Lady Marana. Marana, however you say her name there. And this is an interesting troop that we got back earlier this turn of this year, I think. It is a Delve troop with the Crypt Keepers faction. A little bit higher mana at 17. It deals 24 damage to an enemy with a 10% chance to slay them, boosted by 2% for each purple gem. And the boost ratio is 2. So, the way that I think this troop works, and I could be wrong, but I think it works where the 2 is added to a percent. So, boosted by 2% for each purple gem. So, let's say you have 10 purple gems on the board. The 2% to slay them is going to be 20%, right? Because for every purple gem, you have 2%. So if there's 10 purple gems, you got like a 20% chance to slay them. And so this troop is kind of similar in some sense to Draco 1337, that troop, because that did have a 25% chance to slay an enemy, but it also silenced, stunned, and drained their mana on top of that. So I would say that troop is probably better than this one. And for the traits, we have an immunity to poison, disease, and death mark. We have reduction of damage from skulls by 65%, which is quite a bit. Then we have steal 2 attack from the first enemy on 4 or 5 matches. So this would be a good tank troop. But as far as its ability, I think there's definitely better tanks out there than this troop. And The Slay feature is kind of neat, but again, you have to have a lot of purple gems on the board in order to get that percentage up higher. And I just don't think that that is going to... you can't really rely on the Slay feature of it. So, cool concept, but I think it's not implemented the best that it could be. So we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead, because where do we at? We have Draco up here. I'm going to go ahead and throw this one down, maybe even in D tier. I think I will, because the chance, you're doing a little tiny bit of damage with it, and then you have that small chance of slaying something. And Draco up here not only has a 25% chance of slaying something, but it has the silence, the stun, and the mana drain. So yeah, I think D tier is a happy place for that troop. And we already did Queen Isabella, so let's move on from Knights. Let's go to mechs. Did we miss any legendary mechs? And we do have one here, Karnax, right? I didn't do Karnax yet. So Karnax is interesting as a legendary troop because it doesn't explode gems, it explodes skulls. Now, every time you explode a skull, it deals 1 damage. So if you explode 10 skulls on the board, that will be 10 damage. And I don't know for sure, but I think that if you explode a Doom Skull, it does a little more than the 1 damage. I've kind of observed that, but it could just be my brain seeing things. I would like a developer to confirm that. But this troop, so it explodes skulls, which could generate mana for you because it's going to explode gems around the skull as well. And then it's going to gain armor from E23, and its traits work well with it. Good synergy. First one is reduce damage from skulls by 25%. Second one is it's immune to all status effects, devour, and mana burn. And the third one is that it adds 25% of the armor that it has to skull damage. So its armor, 25% of its armor is basically going to be converted into your attack here. And since it's gaining armor every time that it explodes, you're going to increase its skull damage. And also it has a little bit of the reduction by skulls right there, 25%. So this is a pretty good mana generator and tank. Not as good as like Gurgatha, but it has its places. And since it's a mech, if you use the mech class, hero class, you can get this to start with 50% mana. So that's really good. So for Karnax, let's go and put Karnax. I don't think it's A quality, but I don't think it is any less than B tier. I think Karnax deserves B. Yeah. I think he does. And moving on from mech, let's go to merfolk. Let's see what legendaries we have here. I do have 2 that I need to do still. So we have Nimue. I think that's how you say her name. And Nimue is a standard skull troop with the 18 mana cost. Now let's see if when it transforms colors that it does it fill up its own mana. So it transforms yellow gems to skulls and red gems to purple. It does use purple, so it will give itself mana. That's good. Then it will silence the 2 strongest enemies. That's really good. For its traits, the first one is trash. Gain 1 life for each purple ally. The second one, all enemies lose 2 random skill points. That's trash. The third one, steal 4 life from the first enemy when matching green gems. Now that's something I can get behind. So that's a good trait, the final third one there. But these 2, not great. Yeah, so silence 2 strongest enemies, that is really great. And whenever you have some troop that can silence, take notice of what else it can do. Because it may be a really great troop that you can, fit into your team somehow. So, how are we going to rate Nimue here? Nimue. And if you'll notice, it does share the same mana color as Elder Father, which is another skull troop like this. And we place that in the A tier. So, Nimue is no less than A, but with the silence on it. With the silence, I'm going to have to say that Nimue... is S tier. I know some of you might be like, what? You might be shocked by that. And I don't use Nimue as much as I used to, but that silence is still effective. And it'll really disrupt an enemy team. So, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and put her up in S tier. And as you notice, I got most of these other skull teams down here in A tier, but like Isabella has to enchant 2 random allies when it's cast. But silence, I think, is way more dangerous. So I'm going to put Nimue up in S tier. Alright, going back to the game here, looking at the Deep King is a Sea of Sorrow faction troop. 15 mana cost, standard for legendaries. Now, it deals 25 true splash damage to 2 random enemies, then submerge myself and a random ally. So, the true splash damage is interesting. If it was just splash damage, I would say this is, not really that great of a troop at all. But since it's true damage and it's true splash damage, because splash damage is going to do some damage to the enemies around it as well. And this says to 2 random enemies. So the initial hits are going to be 25 and 25, which is going to be 50. And then you're going to get some splash damage. So it's probably going to be 75, 80 damage every time you use it in true damage. Then it will submerge itself and a random ally. So that submerge can be pretty good. The first trait is only good for delves. The second one, become enraged when an enemy dies. I don't see how that's good at all, because why would you want to put this troop in the first place when there's so many other great options to put up there at the first spot? The third one, all merfolk gain 3 attack on 4 or 5 gem matches. That's okay. But a troop like this that does true damage and it's doing the submerge thing, instead of being enraged, I feel like they should do something else there where maybe kind of like the Kraken, it does like 3 damage to all enemies on a 4 or 5 match. I feel like it needs something like that. Instead of just damage, it needs to have like true damage that it'll do to all enemies on 4 or 5 matches or something. And that might even be better than the 3 attack that it's gaining here. Because like these 2 traits seem like they go together good, but it doesn't match what this is supposed to be doing. So it feels a little bit weird with this troop, even though there is some potential for true damage there. So the Deep King is going to go, I think, in C tier around the bat, Crimson Bat. I'm going to put him in there because he's doing true damage like that. He's a little better than the bat, I think, in my opinion, but he's still not as good as some of the other troops you can reach for. Alright, so let's move on to the next list here. Is there any monster troops that I did not include? I already got all the monster. Mystic legendaries. Okay, so Luna. We didn't do Luna yet. Luna is another legendary troop from the underworld. It does have a 16 mana cost. It deals damage to all enemies, and then it either inflicts 1 to 2 status effects to all enemies, or it grants 1 to 2 status effects to all allies. And now the damage to all enemies is a little bit of a negative, but even if all of the enemy troops with barrier or submerge were able to dodge the damage there, it could still inflict a bunch of negative status effects on the enemy or positive effects on your allies, which might be a game changer for the traits. First one doesn't matter. Second one, 20% chance to dodge skull damage, which is good. The third one, though, explode a random gem when matching yellow gems. Now, that's good. So it can generate a little bit of mana for itself or for other troops. Yeah, so Luna, I am going to go ahead and put Luna, because it has the ability to do the status effects, and I think it belongs in B tier because it has the exploding too on its trait, and all of those positive or negative status effects really can be a game changer. But I wouldn't say that that its damage is anything that is going to put it in A tier. So I'm going to say Luna's a B tier legendary. And all of this is from my own experience. So of course, there's going to be some of you that have different experience with some of these legendaries, and that's fine. Express your opinions in the comments section. Let me know how much of an idiot I am and all that kind of good stuff for putting one legendary above another. And yeah, let's have fun with this. So this troop here is another legendary from the underworld, Queen Zochi. And it deals damage to all enemies. If there is a storm, explode 5 gems. Now that is kind of cool that it explodes gems. I would like it that it could start a storm. Maybe it does in its traits. Let's take a look at it and see. So the first one doesn't matter. Second one, you have reduction from damage from spells by 25%. Then there's a 35% chance to summon a Harpy Mage when maging 4 or more gems. And that's interesting. So that adds to some survivability of your team. However, it's a little bit negative to me that it's damaging all enemies. Not that it won't do damage at all. Of course, if they're not submerged or they don't have berry on it, you're going to do damage. But it just seems like there's better damage types out there now in other troops. And since there's no way that it can start a storm, you're going to have to rely upon your class or a different troop in order to start that storm, in order to get that going. So by itself, if we look at this troop, even without the traits, if we say, what is it going to do for you from day one when you get it without unlocking its traits? Well, it's just going to do damage to all enemies, right? And at a 16 mana cost. So there are certain weapons that do a good amount of damage to all enemies with probably a little bit lower mana than that. And then there's obviously other troops in the game that do damage to all enemies. Like Behemoth does damage to all enemies, plus it destroys 12 gems. And it doesn't have to rely on another troop for that. Plus it has a 14 mana instead of 16. So this legendary troop, not that great. Honestly, this troop feels more like an ultra rare troop than it does a legendary. So Queen Zochi is, and I believe this is her right here, right? Yeah, that is her. Alright, so Queen Zochi, I'm going to say, is going to be, oh boy, I don't know if it could qualify as a C, just because it just feels so bad that the only thing you got going for it is damage to all enemies. So I'm going to go ahead and throw Queen Zochi in here in D tier. Yep. So then we have Sekhmet. Now Sekhmet, is another one of those skull troops, has 18 mana cost. It transforms blue gems to skulls and transforms brown gems to yellow. Brown gems to yellow, it does not give itself mana. Then it deals 25 damage to an enemy boosted by all other allies' magic. And it's a 2-1 ratio, so basically half of all of your allies' magic combined, it will do damage to an enemy with that, which could be pretty powerful. It could be close to maybe an extra, you know, it might get this 25 close to 100 damage. You know, and for that alone, it makes it pretty powerful, but it doesn't generate mana for itself. And looking at its traits, the first one is just garbage. Allied Raksha, gain 2 life, immunity to frozen. And how does that even, like, okay, I guess immunity to frozen synergizes a little bit with transforming gems, because you could have a 4 match there, and that would give you an extra turn if you're not frozen. But if it's not transforming the same colors that it uses, then it won't, frozen won't affect this troop anyway. The final trait, gain 2 magic on red gem matches. Now that actually is kind of that's pretty powerful, because if you're matching a lot of red gems, that could definitely boost your magic here. And if you have a troop that can transform a color into red, then this troop can definitely shine. But is it as powerful as something like Nimue? No, because Nimue has silence. Silences 2 enemies, and it's generating mana for itself. So I'm going to say that Sekhmet is B tier. Yeah. I'm going to put Sekhmet up here. That's B tier. It's still powerful, but just not quite as powerful, I think, as stuff like Keelan, Divine Ishbala, Wrath, you know, the other skull troops like that. And we already did those legendaries. We got a couple other ones here. Starflower is another legendary from the underworld, right? No, it's not. Okay. It's legendary from the Pan's Veil Kingdom. It's considered a wild folk. It deals 22 damage to all enemies boosted by ally and enemy fae. Summon a random fae. There's a 20% chance to transform a random enemy to a pixie. So transform again is a pretty powerful mechanic. It can really disrupt the enemy team. Looking at the traits, the first one is just trash. Gain 1 magic when an ally casts a spell. Reduce damage from spells by 25%. And then finally at the end here, you have 50% chance to Fairy Fire a random enemy at the start of my turn. That's actually pretty darn good with Fairy Fire there. And that will allow this damage to be more if enemies are Fairy Fired. The fact that it has a 20% chance to transform as well is useful. So a troop like this, I would probably include in my team as more of like a utility troop where I don't count on its damage or its transform working to win my battle or the Fairy Fire, but I just use it in case. Well, I would mainly use it for the Fairy Fire trait here probably, and then this would just be a bonus if I was actually able to get damage through to any enemies, and if I was able to transform an enemy. That would just be a bonus. So I wouldn't rely on its ability. I would rely more on its trait, which is going to make it go down on my tier list a little bit further simply because you need to farm for those trait stones to unlock this. And since it's a legendary troop, you're going to need, you know, whatever it is, 12 plus arcane stones to unlock that final trait. So, yeah, Starflower. Starflower, you are going to go into C tier, I think. And you're going to go right around here with Lust, because Lust also has the transform on its ability, just like this one does. So, yeah, we're going to put Starflower in the C tier. And now, looking at Urskula. This legendary troop has 16 mana cost. It deals 34 scatter damage boosted by enraged allies. So it does 8 more damage per enraged ally. And after it casts itself, it enrages all allies and gives them 5 attacks. So the second time that you cast this troop, its damage will be increased by quite a bit. It will be increased by something like, 32 damage. So it'll almost double its scatter damage after the second time you cast it, as long as all of your allies remain enraged. So that's interesting. For its traits, the first trait doesn't matter, that's trash. The second one doesn't matter, that's trash. The third one, all Arska start the battle with 50% mana. So it is one of those troops that can really get your team going quicker if you're using troops that are Arska. The only downside to this is that there aren't really any great Arska troops available in the game right now, and it's one of the kingdoms that lacks troops. So until we get a really good Arska mythic troop or other legendaries that are really good that are considered Arska, this troop's potential is going to be it's not going to have its full potential used. And scatter damage is pretty weak generally. Enrage could be useful in certain cases to do more skull damage. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and put this guy in probably D tier, simply because its boost of 50% damage, or not 50% damage, the boost of 50% starting mana for Arska troops doesn't really shine because there isn't any great Arska troops right now. And by itself, it has weak scatter damage. So it's just going to go D tier. Now, we have another faction legendary troop here called Via Soulmourn. And this troop deals 22 damage to all enemies boosted by blessed allies. Summon a Silver Necropolis troop. For its traits, the first one, it doesn't matter. The second one is an immune to poison, disease, and death mark. Third trait is bless a random ally on 4 or 5 matches. So yeah, you would probably use this troop more for the bless function. I wouldn't rely on the damage to all enemies, but it does summon a Silver Necropolis troop when it's cast, if there is an available spot for it. So it has great utility with the summon and with the bless on 4 or 5 matches. So yeah, we're going to put this guy probably in C, simply because bless is pretty powerful and it can summon a troop. So I'm going to put it in C. And look at this, guys. We're getting down to the last legendaries available on this. We're getting close. Few more to go. Alright. So Viper is another legendary troop from the Mist of Scales Kingdom, 14 mana. It deals 36 damage to an enemy, poison, and charm them. For its traits, it is immune to poison, and for the second trait, it gains 1 magic. That's trash. The third one, deal 3 damage to a random enemy when an ally casts a spell. And that doesn't seem that good either. So, really, all the traits on this troop are garbage. Its ability is interesting, but the poison isn't really going to do much for you unless you have another troop that has a boost of damage on poison troops. And there's a lot of other troops that poison all enemy troops, like Magnus, or even Web Spinner, I think, poisons all enemies when you cast it. And then the charm, Lust is better at charming, plus it has a transform. So I'm going to say that Viper is at the top of F tier. It's garbage, but it's like neatly crumpled up garbage. Yeah, Hydra is just like burn it. It's just, yeah, it's a toxic trash. Just get rid of it. I don't even know why it's in the game. I mean, I guess it's a cool concept, but it's like it needs something in its own abilities to like lower its health if it's going to have that type of mechanic. Anyway, it's always fun to bash on Hydra, right? Yeah, some of you guys might get that. Okay, so Naga, I mean, I got all the oh, wait a minute. Is this a legendary troop? No, this is just a special troop for the event. Yeah, the Orc legendary here is the one that I didn't do yet. So, yeah, Garnock. So, deal 1 true damage to all allies, create 7 red and 7 brown gems boosted by Orc allies, summon an Orc troop. Now, this legendary troop is very interesting, and I really wish that we had some good mythic Orc troops. Like, every single Orc mythic troop that they've come out with is garbage. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I just feel like I want to be an Orc, and I just want to use an Orc team. And I really wish they would release a good mythic Orc. Even another good legendary Orc. But this is great for mana generation. It's great to summon an Orc troop. I just wish we had better Orc troops. But the reason why it's dealing true damage to all allies, you might be there scratching your head if you're a newer player and be like, that doesn't make sense. Why would it do true damage to all allies? Well, the thing is that almost all orcs have orc armor in their traits. So what that means is that it gains 5 armor when you take damage. So this right here, every time you cast this, it's basically giving all of your orc allies 5 armor and taking 1 life away. That's what that's doing. Then the second trait here is pretty much garbage. Gain 3 to all skills at the last position. I mean, that's generally where you want this troop, but I feel like if it had like immune to mana drain or something like that would be better. All orcs start battle with 50% mana, which is good. Like I said, I just wish we had better orc troops. So, you know, I really want to like this guy more than I do. But Garnock, for me, because all orcs are pretty crap. For what he does, though, he's pretty good, but I'm going to have to put him in D. You know? I mean, I would say that this guy's probably got better things going for him than... I would do this, okay? I would put Garnock ahead of King Goblin and King Goblin ahead of Queen and Grapple Pot. Because whenever I see these guys in a team... Garnock or the King Goblin, I always target them first over Queen Grapple Pot just because of they have the potential to summon troops. The King Goblin has potential to summon Goblin troops, which is actually more dangerous, so let's go ahead and put that above Garnock. And then Garnock can summon Orc troops, which, you know, so yeah, that's the order I would put them in. But they're still both D tier, in my opinion. They might be higher in the D tier. Like, maybe I would put them somewhere like this, maybe. Up here. You know, and if I have time in this video, maybe I'll, like, review these different tiers and see how I want to reorder some of them, maybe. We got 4 legendaries left. So, let's go and... let's keep going here. Yeah, I got all the legendaries there. We'll just go down this way so I don't miss anything. We already got all the Strix legendaries. And Taros, we got, did I do Chief Stronghorn? I don't think I did. Yeah, he's still in the list. Alright, guys. Chief Stronghorn. He's, legendary troop, 16 mana. Pull an enemy to the first place, deal 22 damage to them, boosted by my attack, life, and armor. And that is a third of all of his attack, life, and armor combined. Traits, all allied Taurus gain 2 life. That's trash. Why would I want that? Indigestible, immunity to devour. That's great. The last trait, give all Taurus 1 attack, armor, and life on 4 or 5 match is cool idea. And I'm happy that they included all 3 of those, attack, armor, and life. But how often are you getting 4 and 5 matches in the course of your battles, you know? And 1 attack and armor and life seems really wimpy. What would make Tauros come back with a real vengeance is if they would do like gain 5 attack, armor, and life on 4 or 5 matches. That would make these troops a lot more dangerous in battles, and I would probably try to use my Tauros troops way more. But as it stands, the thing is that the enemy is going to be reducing your armor and life constantly in the battle. And so the damage of this troop is going to become less the longer you take damage in a battle. And that's what I don't like about these Tauros troops that have their damage boosted by attack, life, and armor, is because that it's like fighting against an enemy that is going to reduce your damage every single time that you take damage. And that just feels bad. But it's pull an enemy to the first place can be useful. However, there are weapons that can do this better. And there is a few troops that aren't legendaries that can pull a troop to the first place or knock the first one to the last place and so forth. What would make this troop even better would be pull an enemy to the first place. That's good, but it would be better if it would say something like steal the enemy's armor and pull the enemy to the first place. Like if it did that and it stole the armor, it would increase Chief Stronghorn's damage by a lot, and it would make this troop feel legendary. Like, make Chief Stronghorn legendary again, like if it ever was. And that's what I feel like that troop needs to boost its damage. But as it stands right now, I don't think that it's really that great of a troop. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this guy into D tier, because its damage is not much at all, and it just gets less and less as it gets attacked. And there's not really a great way to gain any more life and armor with the troop itself. So it's going D tier. And we have just a few troops left. Yeah, so I don't even really need to do undead, really, because I already got all the undead, right? Did I? Yeah, I did. Just making sure I didn't miss any, guys. Because I missed that picture on the Elder Father. But, yeah, this looks fine. There's no Wargar legendary troops? What? Really? Huh. Fascinating. And finally, wild folk here. We have King Salamis. 14 mana cost. This troop actually got a rework earlier this year. I think it was earlier this year. But I actually like what they did with it. It deals splash damage to an enemy boosted by wild folk allies. And now it steals 1 magic from all enemies affected by its spell. And then it burns all enemies. So this is the kind of troop that you want in your team if you have that class that does triple damage to burning enemies. Or if you got something like Shegra, which does double damage against burning enemies with skulls. You know, that would be, this would be a good troop to have along with that probably. But, yeah, its traits are, the first one is kind of garbage. The second one is great because it's got all the immunities. And then the third one, all wild folk start battle with 50% mana. So that's really great, and there are a lot of great wild folk troops in the game. A lot of great ones. And there's even a wild folk class that at the start of every turn, you gain 1 magic to all yellow allies, and since this is using yellow, that can boost its damage as well. So, yeah, but by itself, it has a way to increase its damage through stealing magic. Doing splash damage is good because half of the damage that it does to initial troop will spread off to the other troops. So, yeah, this troop I think is going to go up there in my list higher than some of the other ones we've been rating. And I'm going to say that King Silas is probably somewhere in the top of B tier. Somewhere up in here. Because by itself, it doesn't do a tremendous amount of damage. But it has, when you connect it with other wild folk troops, it does really great. So, there's that. Then, we have, oh yeah, it's because wild folk. Alright. We have this legendary troop, which is a vault troop, but this is definitely worth mentioning. Even though I'm not going to do imps, this is not an imp, it's a gnome, legendary gnome, and it is, I think I know exactly what tier this is going to go in, and I was saving him until the last troop. Yeah. Its ability here is pull the last enemy to the first position, charm a random enemy, summon 1 to 3 bomb bots. Then its traits start battles with 50% mana. Then it has stealthy, where it can't be targeted by spells unless it is the last troop alive, and it has a 100 bonus to gold from battle. So not only does this troop boost the damage potential of any troop that has its damage boosted by the amount of gold you have, but also if it's the only troop left and you get the mana up on this thing and you cast it, it will summon 1 to 3 bomb bots, and then it won't be able to be targeted again. It also can charm an enemy. And it can disrupt the enemy's troop order by pulling the last enemy to the first position. So even by itself, it will make you really frustrated with it in a battle. So this troop, Cedric Sparklesack, is going to go S tier. Yep. For sure. Now, we have one legendary troop left, and it's the one that I don't have yet. So, let's go, and I know which kingdom it's from. I'm just going to rank it based on my analysis of its abilities. But, you know, take it with a grain of salt because I don't own this one yet, and I haven't used it. So let's read its ability, see how it looks. So deal 26 damage to an enemy boosted by ally and enemy deaths. Kill either the first enemy or the first ally. Its traits: gains a bonus to souls from battle, 50%. Is immune to poison, disease, and death mark. And the third and final trait is a 50% chance to summon a Varg when an enemy dies. Okay, so this troop is interesting, and I don't know, I must have skipped the week that this thing was released, and I didn't realize it was out, otherwise I would have spent enough gems to get it. But no matter, I'll get it eventually. So it looks like this right here is an either-or thing. So I don't know if it's a 50% chance, but it feels like it's a 50% chance to kill the first enemy on the opposite team, on the enemy team, or the first ally. So you don't want to have this be the first ally. That's what I'm guessing. You want to have this probably at the end of your team, and every time you cast it, just you're going to want to have... Well, this is to summon a troop when an enemy dies. 50% chance. I feel like you want this troop with another troop where you can guarantee a summon. So you can always fill up that first spot. And then, yeah, this could be a pretty deadly legendary in the right team. And if you need to get a way to generate enough mana, though, to keep it going. But that could be potentially deadly. So, the fact that it has a lethal kill is better than the damage. The damage is like, yeah, you know, it's going to do that anyway, but it's not that much damage. But it's definitely going to kill something. It's either going to kill one of your troops or it's going to kill an enemy troop, one or the other. So there is a guarantee there that some troop is going to die, and you could use that to benefit your team somehow. So since it is a guaranteed instant kill, I'm going to say until I can actually use it for myself and do a true evaluation, I probably shouldn't even rank it. But I'm going to say it's probably B tier because of the fact that it can kill your allies. And if you're unlucky, it could kill every single ally every time that you cast it instead of the enemy. So it seems like it's unpredictable in that sense, but also powerful. So I'm going to put it in B tier for now. And the only one we're missing from all of these lists is Elder Father, and I don't know how I missed putting that image into all of this tier list. I will have to fix that later. But he was going to be in A tier, and I have a little bit of time left on this video, so now that we got all these up here, let's go through and re-examine quickly these different troops and see if I want to move them around a little bit. Let's analyze S tier and just re-examine what we're doing here. Do these belong up in S tier? And in what order? So we got Yao at the beginning here, and I think I'm going to move Cedric to the very beginning because Cedric is just... He's a god in his own realm. I mean, it's just insane the amount of damage potential and frustration that he can bring to your team with the right troops like Egg Thief and Greed and a weapon like Skeleton Key. And even if you replace Skeleton Key with pretty much any other troop that does a lot of damage, you're going to still be able to do a lot of damage. So he should be at the beginning of this S tier list. And Yao is definitely powerful, and you don't want to mess with him. So I think he definitely belongs in second place at the S tier. And I think I'm actually going to move Gorgatha to third place because Gorgatha can really improve any team as long as the mana isn't being blocked too much. But it can improve just about any team and speed it up. So I'm going to say that deserves a spot over some of these other ones. And I'm going to actually say that Tesla deserves fourth place because of its insane damage potential, especially when you're doing delves or events. And Doomskulls are really great, high damage. Gobtroffle, I think, does belong behind Glaceon and King Bloodhammer simply because, you're going to be doing way more damage, I think, with Skulls than the Doomskulls than you will with the Damage All. And again, the Damage All that he has, the only damage type that he has is damage to all enemies. And the extra turn gimmick can even be defended against with freeze, and you can defend against damage to all enemies with submerge or barrier. So I do think that belongs there. And Silent Sentinel is one of the most devious tanks in the game. The best and the devious, because it has the silence on it. So, but it doesn't really have any damage by itself, so I think I will put it behind Gobtraffle. And then we also have Divinia here. As a legendary troop, it is a great troop for mana generation, giving life, and cleansing. That's fantastic. Nimue, that is really great troop. Doesn't belong at the end, though. It does the 2 silencing, and it does convert skulls. I might have to put Nimue above Gobtraffle, just because you can counter. I think you can counter Gobtraffle easier than you can counter Nimue. I do. So I think that's probably the order that I would put those in. And let's see, how many S tier do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, we got 10. That's we got a top 10 right here, I guess. Should I create a top 10 video or a top 10 legendaries video? The S tiers. I don't know. It looks like I almost have twice as many A tier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And then there would be 18 with the Elder Father. So I don't have quite double for that, unless I want to move some up to A tier. But there's about 20 or so that are A tier. But what order they should go in, that's the question here. Emperor Corvash, I really do think that he belongs at the top of A tier. And Divine Ishbala is just fantastic. I think it just belongs in second in A tier because of its 40% mana to all divine troops. Plus it gives enchant to 2 random troops. Plus it's can convert skulls. Keelan isn't quite as powerful as Ishbala, but it does belong in there somewhere. And Forest Guardian might be above Keelan, but definitely not above Ishbala. Wrath is definitely somewhere in here. Yeah, I mean, Wrath has the exploding going on, which is really devastating. So I might put Wrath actually in 3rd place. We have Kristanex, and then we have that. We have this, that. Yeah, I don't think it's really gonna matter if I move a couple of these around here and there too much. Yeah. Maybe Keeper of Souls in front of Kristanex. And this troop benefits any team, even besides humans, anywhere that you place it. Great for survivability. And Tints and Tails probably better than Chief Dargon. Yeah, but all of these are A tier, I would say that. B tier, is there any in B tier that we would want to bump up to A tier? That's the question. And I really don't think that there is any. I mean, the Kraken, it is powerful, but you still have to rely upon a chance of Devour. I mean, it really disrupts a team when you do get that going. So, yeah, I just feel like that the Kraken is easy to get rid of if it doesn't devour anything. So, there's that. And yeah, I don't want to question all of my decisions here. I do feel pretty good about C tier and D tier. F tier, there's no question in my mind. Those are the absolute worst legendary troops in the game. So, yeah, just imagine Elder Father here. And Elder Father probably would place somewhere up here next to Keelan and Keeper of Souls, right in there. But for whatever reason, I forgot to put him in. So I'll fix that after these videos. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this tier list, I think. We have a top 10 legendary troop list there. And yeah, I think that's going to wrap up this video. This was part 3. It took me 3 videos. It took me nearly 6 hours, 5.5 hours it took me, guys, to go through this legendary tier list. So if you listen to every single one of these parts all the way to the end, you are a very special person. And, you know, I appreciate it. Feel free to give a like or comment down in the comment sections below on these different tier list videos. And let me know whether you like my decisions or you hate them. You know, let me know what you think. And thanks for watching, as always. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Later.